Audrey had reached the bottom of the first page when my daughter looked across the table at my son and smiled. It was not a broad smile. Celeste knew better than to grin openly while her grandmother's funeral flowers were still browning in the front room. It was the kind of smile two people exchange when they believe something has gone exactly as planned. Marcus lowered his eyes, but the corner of his mouth moved. Audrey kept reading. My recording equipment, including microphones, cassette decks, headphones, portable recorders, cables, and related accessories, shall pass in equal shares to my grandchildren, Celeste Baptiste Cole and Marcus Baptiste. Celeste touched Marcus's wrist beneath the table. That was when I became certain their reaction was not about sentiment. My mother's equipment was old, useful some of it, well cared for all of it. But nobody was going to retire on the value of 2 reel-to-reel decks, 4 cassette recorders, 3 microphones, and a box of cables tied with bread bag fasteners. I looked at my children. Celeste was 42, a documentary producer whose voice became calmer when she was under pressure. Marcus was 39 and helped cultural organizations explain themselves to people with money. He could describe a church bake sale as a regional food initiative without technically lying. Both of them had helped my mother during the last 2 years of her life. Celeste digitized tapes. Marcus built a basic catalog. I had thanked them for it. Audrey turned the page. The paper sounded unusually loud in my mother's little recording room. We were sitting around a folding table between shelves of cassette cases, photographs, notebooks, and index cards written in my mother's narrow hand. Rain had started tapping the metal awning outside. The window unit rattled every time its compressor came on. My mother had asked Audrey to gather us there after her death and read the principal provisions of the will together. People call that a will reading. Audrey called it an estate conference because she preferred accurate language even when nobody else cared. She adjusted her glasses. All original recordings, duplicate recordings, digital files, transcripts, photographs, research notes, subject indexes, correspondence relating to the collection, and all copyrights owned by me at the time of my death shall pass to my son, Leonard Joseph Baptiste. Celeste's hand left Marcus's wrist. Audrey continued, I make this gift in recognition of Leonard's years of work in music education and preservation, and because I believe he will take the time necessary to organize the collection responsibly. That was all. No warning. No accusation. No secret sentence about greed. My mother had not spent her last years arranging a trap. She had given me work she thought I would finish. Audrey looked up. Marcus spoke first. When is the transfer effective? At your grandmother's death, subject to administration. Celeste leaned forward. Did she leave a separate authorization? For what? The series. I looked at her. What series? Neither of my children answered immediately. Marcus drew a slow breath. Celeste looked toward the metal shelves, as though the correct explanation might be stored between a church choir interview and a box labeled Hurricane Personal Accounts. Audrey removed her glasses. I believe, she said, that this is where my duties stop and your family conversation begins. She gathered the will, the inventory, and her legal pad. Audrey, Marcus said, Grandma wanted the recordings shared. She may have. The will tells me who receives what she owned. It does not appoint me to explain what she intended for a project I have never seen. Celeste looked at me. Dad, nobody was hiding anything. You used the word series before I knew one existed. We were going to tell you. When? Marcus shifted in his chair. Once ownership was settled. It is settled now. His jaw tightened. Audrey stood. I'll be in the kitchen if anyone needs me for estate questions, not family questions. She left us in the recording room. For a few seconds, there was only rain, the window unit, and the faint electric hum from a cassette deck somebody had forgotten to unplug. I had spent 37 years in public school music rooms. I knew the silence before somebody admitted missing an entrance. Celeste reached into her bag and placed a tablet on the table. We have a preliminary development agreement, she said. We? Marcus and me. For what? A documentary audio series built around Grandma's collection. How preliminary? Marcus answered. The company has a shopping and development period. They need proof of ownership, clearance on the recordings, and participant releases before a full production deal. And you told them you had those? We told them the collection was controlled by the family. It was controlled by your grandmother. She knew what I was developing, Celeste said. Did she sign the agreement? No. Did you tell the company that? Marcus held my eyes. We said chain of title was being completed. There are phrases people use when they want a listener to cross a bridge without looking beneath it. Chain of title was being completed was one of them. How much money did they advance? 15,000, Celeste said. Together? Yes. How much is left? Neither answered. That told me enough. I stood and moved toward the shelves. Every tape carried my mother's handwriting. Some labels were simple. St. Augustine Cafeteria B. Mr. Landry Barber Shop. Diane School Nurses. Others were less clear. After Claudette left. Music men do not use yet. Front room after storm. Private B as boy. I turned back to Celeste. Show me what you made. She unlocked the tablet. The trailer ran 11 minutes. It opened with a bus braking, a screen door closing, and a snare drum somewhere in the distance. Then my mother's voice came in. We told our own stories because nobody from downtown ever came asking the right questions. That sounded like her. A slow piano line rose underneath. Miss B's voice followed. You learn early that a neighborhood can disappear, while the people are still standing in it. I knew the sentence. I had digitized the full interview 3 years earlier. In the original, B paused for nearly 6 seconds, laughed softly, and added, That sounds more dramatic than I meant. The trailer removed the laugh. It removed the correction. It kept the line. A former school custodian described sleeping inside his building after Katrina because he did not trust anybody else to protect the instruments and student records. Marcus's narration followed. A forgotten generation held New Orleans together, while institutions looked away. It was polished. It was moving. It was not entirely honest. Halfway through, I heard my own voice. We taught children to enter on time, listen across the room, and understand that one loud instrument could make everybody else disappear. That came from a teacher training interview at the Youth Media Lab. The trailer placed it after my mother described our family's tradition of service. Then Marcus said, Led by retired band director Leonard Baptiste, the family opens a private archive for the first time. I stopped the recording. I never agreed to lead anything. Marcus rubbed his jaw. That line can be changed. It should not exist. We expected you to be involved, Celeste said. You expected me to agree. We expected you not to leave Grandma's work sitting in boxes another 5 years. The sentence caught where it was meant to. I kept my voice even. Play the rest. Near the end, Miss B spoke about her son, Raymond. I recognized the recording from the label alone. Raymond had struggled with addiction. He disappeared for almost 8 months when he was 26. Miss B searched hospitals, shelters, and police stations while still reporting to work before sunrise to prepare breakfast for hundreds of children. The trailer used 7 seconds. I kept feeding other people's children because I didn't know where mine was eating. I paused it. Celeste said, That section is not final. Has B heard it? Not yet. Did she sign a release? Grandma recorded her. That was not my question. Celeste's voice cooled. The permissions are mixed. Meaning? Some written, some verbal, some were for community preservation, some are unclear. And you signed an agreement anyway. A development agreement, Marcus said. Nothing has been released. You used my name. You used B's grief. You accepted money against recordings you did not own. Celeste stood. And you left them here. I was organizing them. You were always organizing them. There are hundreds of hours. There are always hundreds of hours with you, hundreds of tapes, hundreds of students, hundreds of reasons. Something important has to wait until you decide it is ready. I looked at her. She picked up the tablet. We made mistakes. I am not denying that. But do not stand there and pretend the only danger to this collection is us. She left. Marcus remained long enough to gather 2 folders. You should read the proposal before killing everything, he said. I have heard enough to stop this version. You always hear enough to stop something. He followed his sister out. I stayed beside the shelves. My mother's portable cassette recorder sat beneath the window. A strip of black tape held the battery cover in place. The red record button had been worn pale at the center. I picked it up. It felt heavier than it had when she carried it. The next morning, I took the tablet and 3 boxes of tapes to the band room at Carver High, where I had spent the final 11 years of my career. The school had changed the paint, the chairs, and half the instruments. The room still smelled faintly of floor wax and valve oil. Rainwater clicked through an old downspout outside the back wall. The new director let me use the room on Saturdays because the youth media program had no properly quiet space. I sat at my old desk, put on headphones, and listened to the trailer again. This time, I made notes. At 2 minutes, 34 seconds, the room tone changed behind my mother's voice. 2 answers had been joined. At 4 minutes, B's pause disappeared. At 6 minutes, a hymn rose beneath a story originally told without music. At 8 minutes, my comments about student discipline had been moved into a section about family legacy. No words had been invented. Meaning had still been arranged. A band can play every written note and still miss the piece. I opened B's raw interview. The full conversation lasted 2 hours and 9 minutes. My mother and B discussed cafeteria work, segregation, uniforms, recipes, hurricanes, and children who came to school hungry. Raymond did not come up until the final 20 minutes. My mother lowered her voice. You sure you want me to keep this running? B answered. Let it run. I don't know if I want anybody hearing it, but I need to say it once. That was not permission to broadcast. I called her. She answered on the 4th ring. Leonard, if you are calling to bring me gumbo, I made my own. I need to play you something. That sounds less useful. It concerns Raymond. She went quiet. 20 minutes later, I was at her dining room table with the tablet between us. I played the 7-second excerpt. She did not move. When it ended, she placed both palms on the table. Who put music under me? Celeste's production team. I did not have a piano when Raymond was missing. No, ma'am. I did not sound noble either. You sounded tired. I was tired. She looked toward her kitchen. Is that going public? Not if you say no. For several seconds, I thought she might ask me to erase the entire interview. The cafeteria stories can go, she said. Which ones? The breakfast program, the storm, the children we fed through the back door when the paperwork people said we could not. And Raymond? No. All of it? She considered that. The part where he came home stays private too. I nodded. B's eyes sharpened. Do not nod like the whole matter is settled. I thought you said no. I said no to Raymond. I did not say no to my life. I understand. No, you understand how to stop a tape. She tapped the tablet. Your daughter was wrong to use that piece. You would be wrong to lock away everything because one piece frightened you. It did not frighten me. Leonard, I have known you since your mother starched your shirts hard enough to stand by themselves. Do not waste my morning. I almost smiled. She did not. Odessa recorded people because she believed ordinary lives deserved witnesses, B said. She was not careful enough about what might happen later. Celeste moved too fast. You are getting ready to stop moving. Those are different mistakes. They can bury the same thing. On Monday, I called Diane. My former wife answered with, What happened? You assume something happened. You do not call before 8 unless somebody is sick or you are angry. I am not angry. Then somebody must be very sick. I told her about the will, the agreement, and the trailer. She listened without interrupting, one of several skills she had developed more fully than I had. When I finished, she said, "The release needs to stop." Relief came too quickly. Then she added, "You need to be careful." About what? Using their mistake to prove everything you already believe about them. They misrepresented ownership. Yes. They used private material. Yes. They used my name. Yes, Len, I heard you. Then what are you warning me about? The satisfaction you get from being the responsible one. I stood in my kitchen with a spoon above coffee I had forgotten to stir. This is not about our marriage. No, the habit survived it. I am protecting people. You should. But if you decide nothing can ever be heard, make sure you are protecting B and the others. Not only protecting yourself from what may be on those tapes. What would be on them? Diane was quiet. That question is why you need to listen. I did not appreciate her answer. I appreciated it even less when Celeste arrived that evening, carrying an old thumb drive. She remained standing. You told Miss B. She had a right to hear what you used. I know. Do you? Her face tightened. She placed the drive on my table, opened the folder called Carver Fundraiser. I recognized the file before it began. My own voice came through the speakers, younger and brighter. Sometimes a child does not know she has a voice until somebody gives her room to use it. Then Celeste sang. She had been 13. Her voice was clear but uncertain, the way a child sounds when she thinks nobody important is listening. I remembered the afternoon. She had been waiting for rehearsal to end. She stood near the piano and sang while I checked microphones. I recorded her. 2 months later, the band needed instruments. The district rejected another request. I used Celeste's recording during a fundraising presentation. The presentation worked. We bought 3 trumpets, 2 clarinets, a bass drum, and enough reeds to last the semester. For years, I remembered those instruments. Celeste stopped the file. You did not ask me. I should have. You told the room I was proof of what your program could produce. I was proud of you. I was not in your program. I looked at the blank computer screen. You stopped singing after that. Yes. I thought you lost interest. You never asked. My first instinct was to explain the instrument shortage. I could feel the explanation lining itself up. I let it pass. I used your voice because I believed the purpose was good, I said. I decided what the recording meant without asking you. Celeste folded her arms. I have heard about those instruments for 29 years. I know. Do you? I looked at the thumb drive. I remember what the fundraiser bought. I did not remember what it cost you. Her expression changed, but not enough to make the moment comfortable. Does this mean you approve the series? She asked. No. She gave a short laugh. Of course not. I can be wrong about what I did to you and still be right about what you did to B. That sounds like you. It is also true. Yes, she said, it is. She reached for the drive. Leave it. Why? Because I need to hear it again. She left without saying goodbye. 2 days later, Diane came over carrying a yellow legal pad. I made a list, she said. That is rarely a friendly sentence. You wanted specifics. I do not remember asking. You asked by calling me before breakfast. She sat at the kitchen table. Celeste's 8th grade solo. I arrived before the second half. You promised the first. Marcus's graduation dinner. A student's mother was taken to the hospital. And you stayed with him. He was 17. Marcus was 22, and the dinner was his. She continued. Celeste's outpatient surgery. The family trip to Mobile. A birthday supper I shortened because the band bus broke down. Every event had an explanation. Some of the explanations were good. That was the problem. Diane placed the pen on the table. You built a life where every emergency proved your work mattered. and every disappointment at home was expected to understand. That is not entirely fair. No, she said. It was not entirely fair to them either. I went to the sink. 3 food containers sat on the counter, labeled for students from the youth program. Diane followed my eyes. You fed people, she said. You repaired instruments. You drove children home. You did good work. Apparently not enough. That is not what I said. It is what this is beginning to sound like. Your good work does not become bad because your children needed something different, and their pain does not make their agreement honest. I know. I turned around. So what do you want me to do? Stop asking which side gets to be innocent. The first listening meeting took place the following Saturday in the school multipurpose room. I invited Miss B, a retired barber named Mr. Landry, 2 former teachers, Celeste, Marcus, and 3 other people represented in the trailer. I prepared an agenda. That was my first mistake. I began by explaining the categories I had created: public, private, restricted, and unresolved. Mr. Landry raised his hand. What does unresolved mean? It means we need more information. From who? The participant. That is me. Yes. Then ask me. I adjusted my papers. Would you approve commercial use of your interview? Which part? The material about the barber shop. That is 3 hours. We can identify sections later. Then why am I answering now? Celeste watched without helping me. Miss B sat with her purse in her lap. I moved to the next item. We also need consistency for deceased participants. A former teacher interrupted. Consistency for what? For editorial decisions. What if 2 people remember the same thing differently? We can provide context. Whose context? The room began to sound like a rehearsal where every section had tuned itself. I did what I had done for decades. I raised my voice just enough to organize them. 1 person at a time. The room stopped. Not because they agreed. Because they recognized the teacher. I summarized Miss B's position before inviting her to speak. She lifted 1 eyebrow. Leonard. Yes? You just moved my words around. I was clarifying. You did not need editing equipment to do it. Nobody laughed. I looked at the agenda. She was right. I folded the pages once and placed them beside my chair. All right, I said. Let me start again. I turned to Mr. Landry. What did you believe Odessa was going to do with your interview? He leaned back. Keep it. For herself? For anybody who wanted to know how the shop used to be. Would you want it in a paid program? Some of it. What would you not want? The part about my brother. Why? Because it belongs to my brother too. We stayed for 3 hours. I spoke less during the final 2 than I had during the first 20 minutes. Not every answer was clean. Some wanted to hear each edit before deciding. Some approved community radio but not national advertising. One man did not care who used his interview as long as nobody made him sound heroic. Miss B approved her school and cafeteria material. She refused everything concerning Raymond. Nobody asked me to decide for them. That should not have surprised me. It did. Marcus waited until the others left. He stood beside the folded cafeteria tables with his hands in his pockets. You made us look dishonest in there. You wrote that the archive was controlled by the Baptiste family. It is now. It was not when you wrote it. We believed it would be. You believed I would agree. We believed Grandma wanted it shared. You turned belief into authorization. That is how proposals get attention. No, that is how uncertain claims become somebody else's problem. His expression hardened. You think confidence is a moral failure because you never had to sell anything. I sold school programs to principals, parents, school boards, and children who would rather have been anywhere else. You had a title. When you said the band needed money, people listened. You think teaching handed me respect? I think certainty did. He stepped closer. You never respected what I do, because the words change depending on the audience. But communication means shaping the truth, so somebody can hear it. You shaped uncertainty into permission, and you shaped every family disappointment into a reasonable exception. That stopped me. Marcus looked tired, not triumphant. I knew the wording was too strong, he said. I thought once the company showed interest, you would come in and make it proper. You used pressure instead of asking. Yes. The answer was quiet. Not an excuse. Just yes. Why? Because if we came to you first, you would say the collection was not ready. It was not. It was never going to be ready. I looked toward the rain-dark windows. You should have asked. You should have invited us in before Grandma died. Both statements remained true. Neither canceled the other. Over the next 2 weeks, I listened to more of the collection than I had in the previous 2 years. There was no final tape in which my mother predicted what would happen. There were ordinary notes. Celeste will scan photographs Tuesday. Marcus says sponsor language needs work. Ask B again about Raymond's section. Len still organizing school tapes. Possible series someday must speak to people first. The notes showed that Celeste's place in the project was real. They did not authorize what she and Marcus had promised. One afternoon, I found a conversation between my mother and Celeste recorded 18 months earlier. They discussed a documentary series. My mother liked the idea. She suggested people Celeste should interview and complained that I spent too much time labeling recordings and not enough time playing them. Then she said, "Your father needs to be involved." Celeste replied, "He will stop it. He may slow it. He slows everything until it belongs to him." My mother waited. "Then make him listen," she said, "but do not promise people's lives before you ask them." The recording continued. Celeste asked, "Do you think he knows what it was like growing up around all those students?" My mother answered, "Your father knew how to carry responsibility. Sometimes he did not know where to put it down." I removed the headphones. The band room was empty. 3 folding chairs were stacked beneath a faded concert poster. I remembered Celeste asleep across 3 chairs after rehearsal, her backpack under her head, while I worked 40 extra minutes with the brass section. I had carried her to the car. For years, that was the part I remembered. I had not remembered that she waited. The production company scheduled a meeting for Friday afternoon. Its legal clearance team had reviewed the will, the preliminary agreement, and the participant concerns I submitted. The studio occupied the 2nd floor of a converted warehouse. Air conditioning hummed behind acoustic panels. Through one window, I could see rainwater gathering along the curb. 2 company representatives joined us. Marcus sat beside Celeste. I sat across from them. The senior producer, Karen Wells, spoke carefully. The existing development agreement cannot proceed. The rights representations are incomplete, and several recordings require permissions that have not been secured. Celeste's face remained still. Marcus looked at the table. Karen continued, "We do believe the underlying project has considerable value." She placed a revised proposal in front of me. "Because you inherited Mrs. Baptiste's recordings and copyrights, we would consider a new agreement directly with you. You would serve as executive producer and principal family representative. The schedule would be adjusted, but we could preserve part of the development work." "What happens to Celeste and Marcus?" "Their participation would be subject to your approval." Celeste looked at me. Karen continued, "The consent dispute could also be acknowledged within the editorial framing. The process of protecting the collection may help audiences understand why these stories matter." The sentence was professional. It was also an invitation. I looked through the glass into the recording booth. A microphone stood under a soft light. I could see the shape of the offer. I could preserve the project, remove my children, become the responsible father who rescued his mother's legacy, allow my failures to sit in the background while their misconduct became the clean, dramatic center. Some people would admire that version. That was what made it tempting. I closed the proposal. "No." Karen's expression barely changed. "Is there a term you would like revised?" "I am not signing it. May I ask why? You would be replacing one consent problem with a cleaner public story. That is not our intention. It is the result. Celeste watched me closely. Karen said, "Without a replacement agreement, the original advance may become repayable under its breach provisions." I understand. The national release window may also close. I understand that too. Marcus spoke. Dad, do not do this just because you are angry. I am angry. He looked surprised. I am also not giving a company permission to turn this family failure into the selling point. Karen sat back. I think it may help to pause. No, I said. I think you should leave us the room. She hesitated, then gathered the proposal. We would review a substantially revised submission in the future. When the door closed, Marcus stood. You killed the project. The version you sold is over. You could have protected the participants without throwing away the platform. They wanted me to become the platform. Celeste's voice was low. What happens now? That depends on whether you still want to make something when the national deal is gone. She stared at me. You would let me continue? Not the way you did it. Meaning you control every edit. No. Then what? Permission for each episode. Clear limits. No exclusive claim over the whole collection. No statement that the family agrees when it does not. Marcus gave a short laugh. That is not a national series. No. That is community radio. Then that may be where we begin. You are shrinking it because you are afraid. I looked through the studio glass. Partly. The room quieted. I turned to Celeste. There is something else. She waited. Do you want your account of growing up as my daughter included? Marcus looked at her. Celeste narrowed her eyes. Are you asking whether I want to criticize you publicly? I am asking whether you want your account included. And if I say yes, I will not remove it because it concerns me. You will answer every point. I may want to. That is not the same as agreeing not to. No. She looked at the microphone. If I tell it, you do not follow every sentence with an explanation. I breathed in. All right. You do not explain the students who needed you. All right. You do not turn every missed event into proof that you were helping somebody else. That will be harder. I know. I nodded once. But all right. We went into the booth. Marcus remained outside at the console. Celeste sat across from me. The red light came on. I thought about every student I had taught to breathe before the first note. Then I began. My name is Leonard Baptiste. I spent 37 years helping young people develop enough confidence to be heard across a room. During some of those same years, my own children learned that my attention often belonged to whoever needed me most publicly. I stopped. Celeste did not rescue me with a smile. I continued. I provided for them. I loved them. I also missed things I had promised to attend, used my daughter's voice without permission because I believed the purpose was good, and treated my son's work as less serious because I did not understand it. My mouth had gone dry. I cannot correct what they did with my mother's collection by pretending my history has no place in it. I also cannot approve private recordings simply because the project may be valuable. Any program that comes from this collection will require clear permission from the people whose lives it contains. I looked at Celeste. She remained still. The original release will not proceed, I said. What comes next will be smaller, slower, and less profitable. I hope it will also be more honest. Marcus switched off the microphone. The silence afterward did not feel empty. It felt unedited. The national agreement ended the following week. Under its terms, Celeste and Marcus had to return the unused portion of the advance and repay the remainder on a schedule because the rights representations could not be completed as promised. I did not offer the money. That was harder than I expected. Practical help had always been my easiest language. Writing a check would have reduced their immediate trouble and allowed me to feel useful again. Celeste negotiated her repayment plan. Marcus took additional contract work. They corrected the pitch materials and contacted every organization that had received the claim that the collection was fully authorized. Celeste met Miss B alone. I know only what they later told me. She apologized without asking for the private recording. Miss B accepted the apology. She still said no. That mattered. An apology was not permission. We spent 9 months producing 3 local radio episodes. The work was slower than any of us liked. A former teacher approved her interview and changed her mind 2 weeks later. We removed it. Mr. Landry approved the barbershop material but asked that his brother's name be cut. We cut it. Miss B recorded a new introduction to her cafeteria episode in her own kitchen. No piano played beneath it. Celeste remained the producer. I did not take her chair. I reviewed source material, helped identify context, and occasionally caught an edit that leaned too heavily toward one meaning. She sometimes told me I was conducting again. Occasionally, she was wrong. Often, she was not. Marcus stayed away for almost 4 months. Then he appeared at the youth media room one Tuesday carrying a box of printed corrections. "I sent these to every partner," he said. I looked through them. Each page listed an original claim and the corrected wording. "You did this yourself?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because confident wording does not create permission." He said it without looking at me. "Did you speak to Miss B?" "Yesterday." "How did it go?" "She did not offer me coffee." "That means you have work left." He almost smiled. I apologized. "What did she say?" "She believed me." "And?" "She still does not want me representing her." "That is her decision." "I know." There was no embrace. Marcus returned the next week and helped organize the release records. 3 months later, Celeste let him draft a short description for the local radio website. She edited half of it. He complained. That sounded ordinary enough to be hopeful. My own routine changed in less dramatic ways. On Wednesday mornings, Celeste and I worked through recordings together. Twice a month, Marcus joined us for breakfast. No microphones. No tablet on the table. No phones face up beside the plates. At first, we struggled to find subjects that were not connected to the collection. I learned that Celeste had started taking singing lessons again. She did not offer to sing for me. I did not ask. Marcus told me about a museum campaign he was proud of. I asked how he decided what language to use. He looked suspicious. Then he answered for 20 minutes. I attended one of Celeste's documentary screenings and sat in the 3rd row without introducing myself to anybody important. I went to an exhibit Marcus helped launch and stayed through the reception, even after my knees began objecting. I still volunteered at the youth program. I still repaired instruments. I still cooked too much food. But I stopped using those good habits as evidence that my children had remembered our family incorrectly. The first revised episode aired 11 months after Audrey turned to page 2. It opened with my mother's portable cassette recorder clicking on. Then Miss B's voice filled the studio. No music. No dramatic narration. Just B saying, "Before I tell you about feeding children, understand that hunger has never waited for paperwork." It was better than the trailer. Less polished. More alive. A week after the broadcast, I was helping a 16-year-old named Nia interview a woman who had operated a neighborhood bookstore for 40 years. The woman began telling a story about her husband. Halfway through, her voice changed. Nia noticed. She reached across the table and stopped the recorder. "Do you want to keep going?" she asked. The woman looked surprised. "No, not with that part. We can delete it now, or you can decide later." "Delete it now." Nia erased the file. No argument. No explanation about historical value. No promise that the painful part might help somebody. She gave the woman her choice back. My mother's recorder sat beside them, its battery cover still held by black tape, its red button worn from years of use. For most of my life, I believed listening meant catching every note, every hesitation, every place a voice might fail. I know better now. Sometimes, listening means stopping the recording. Sometimes it means leaving a sentence unanswered. And sometimes a father finally hears his children when he stops arranging their words into a version that is easier for him to conduct. Tell me in the comments who you believe should control a family recording, the person who preserved it, the person whose life it contains, or both. And stay with Wise Dad Stories for more original stories about fathers learning wisdom through the choices that cost them something.